All right. So while we wait for others, what we thought we could do is we can go around the room and we can introduce ourselves. So I'll go first. My name is Jeslin Varghese. I am the director and vice president for GBRI. I wear a couple of hats. I'm also the director for project controls at MTA, which is a transportation agency in New York City. I just flew in here this morning, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Juma, and EGBC.
And my name is Alaa, Shibly, and I'm an architect and a well-accredited professional. And we will tell you more about WellAP and how to get the certification today.
Yeah.
Anyone needs a mic because I think
Dr. Papsi, Chairperson of School of Design and Architecture at Manipal Academy of Higher Education.
Hi, my name is Marwa, Marketing Manager for Irish Standards. Hi, my name is Sana, I'm the showroom assistant for Irish Standards.
Hello, my name is Roxana. I'm a sales manager for projects in Hooker, Paleta.
my name is Jeslin.
Yeah, it's the issue with
Good morning, I'm Abdulatif Al-Italy. I'm Director of Industry Building Council. I'd like to welcome you all to this workshop. I'm looking forward to this interesting topic.
Thank you. So maybe since I have microphone now, this is the time for me to check. Can we make sure? So yeah, folks on the Zoom, can you guys hear us?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I will start with a little bit about GBRI. We are
but your audio is a little bit low.
Based in New York City. It's a gamified platform. We like to call it an education and social impact platform. We are also a UN SDG partner where we make courses and do social experiments on many of the UN SDGs you see here. In fact, the course that we will walk you through, this is on some of the UN SDGs. Sorry, technological challenges here. On. Anyway, yeah, thank you. We are a UN SDG partner, education partner for the US Green Building Council, education provider for the American Institute of Architects, and also a few other entities you see on the screen, such as the Collaborative for High Performance Schools. Our mission is to make sure that sustainability is easily accessible to everyone around the world. And we also believe that to be we believe that is truly sustainable future should be also an equitable one where everyone is treated equally, regardless of their age, their sex, their religious background, whatnot. So on our platform, we have all these courses, some of the courses around climate change, wellness, green buildings, so energy modeling. So you find around 300 plus courses. We also have courses on project controls, which is like project management, cost control, scheduling, and things like that. All right. So we have one more person in the room. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Tommaso. Nice to meet you guys. Love the engineer. I'm an architect, master degree in sustainable design, and I want to hear more about well. So yeah, I'm investing in myself. because really we need that transition to net zero, and sustainability is something that is already happening. It's going to happen more and more, and it's really important to be here and and learn more and understand which direction the EU is taking and where we're going. So it's really important to be present in these special moments, right? This is basically what I can share with you. I don't want to bore you with the list of that tutorial, so thanks for having me. And yeah. Sure. We maybe will have a chat after the seminar. Yes. Should I pass it on to okay, so I was the last one. Okay, good. Thank you. You're there. Thank you very much. Right.
I think so. So if you actually put the folks on, so to talk, can they answer?
No, I think it's a little bit. You want to talk about the agenda and after that I can start.
All right. So here is the rough agenda for today. So we'll start with what is well? What is the well building standard? What is that about? We'll talk about the well health safety rating. Then we look at well concepts. What has changed from the previous version? So that right now we're talking about the version number 2. So there's been a version before that, version number 1. And then we talk about well AP exam. 10 things you should know if becoming a well AP is in your near-term agenda. And last but not least, we talk about how can GBRI help you with your well goals. And before you came, so my self-introduction would be for this course would be I'm a well faculty. I'm also a USGBC faculty, which means I have lead AP, well AP, a few other credentials related to this field. I am a strong proponent of sustainability, wellness, and social equity. So with that, I'm going to ask Alaa, who is also GBRI's climate change ambassador, sustainability ambassador, to start the session.
Can you all hear me without the mic?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Zoom part.
Clear.
Can you hear me without the mic?
Yes, clear.
Okay. So let's begin by asking a very simple question. What does health mean to us?
Around, I'm curious to see, what does health mean to you?
Oh, you want us to?
Yeah.
Okay, let's use that.
If anybody would like to participate, or we can move on. According to World Health Organization, someone wants to speak.
Anyone like to
What health means to you?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. What does health mean to you? Like, especially after the pandemic, right? So when I say I'm healthy, does it also always mean I'm healthy in terms of physical appearance, or is it lack of disease, or does it mean I'm also healthy in my mind or my social well-being?
Can I start?
Yes.
So for me, being healthy means I'm not sick and I'm fit.
Got it. So not sick and being fit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abdul. Juma, do you want to go? There's no right or wrong answer. What does health mean to you?
I think it's the ability to do things without feeling very tired.
Yes.
It could be.
So the ability to do things without feeling the pain or inconvenience. Yeah.
For
Okay.
me, being healthy is taking care of different aspects of yourself, from your physical body to your mental health, your spiritual health, and the way you feel on a daily basis, physically, mentally, spiritually. So yeah, it's
So mental, physical, and spiritual.
yeah. So this is probably the way I see being healthy.
Perfect. Thank
And
you.
according to the World Health Organization, she wants to go.
Yeah, for me, it means to be physically and mentally fit.
Great.
Physically, mentally fit. Perfect. You guys want to
Exactly. So according to the World Health Organization, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. I like this.
So this particular one, if you could pause it for a second,
Yeah.
Just to go with what Thomas was also mentioning. In the past, we always think that being healthy is always about being healthy in terms of not having any disease. But now, especially after the pandemic, we have come to the realization that it's not always about physical health. We also have to be mindful about where we are spiritually. Are we connected to the people around us? Are we connected to the nature around us? So all those comes into when I say I'm in good health. So that's where I think we are going with. Not just the lack. If you're not having a disease, good. But are you healthy? So that actually brings the next question. Why go for well or occupant wellness? Because some of you are representing companies, right? Bhakti is representing a university. We are representing an educational partner. Then we have airline industry here. We have emerging green building councils here. We also have architects here. So why should we care about occupant wellness?
Actually, we shape our buildings, and afterwards, our buildings shape us. I love this quote from Winston Churchill. Considering that we spend 90% of our time indoors, buildings are an inseparable part of our lives. We sleep and rest at homes, we work in offices, we study in school buildings, and we meet our friends in a restaurant. So basically, buildings are everywhere, and we cannot ignore them. And they are in a very good degree, shape who we really are.
Do you believe that buildings can shape us? So think about we go to school, that is where we interact with our friends, we make friends, and we come back home, that is where we are connected to ourselves and our family. So we spend more than 90% of the times in the buildings. So why are buildings not making health the priority? So this is another slide, which is typical business operating costs. So from here you can see that a typical office building or any offices we take around the world, the study done by the World Green Building Council, 1% of the operating cost goes towards energy, 9% goes to rental cost. Remaining 99% of the cost is going towards managing staff, their salaries and things like that. So they consider their entire capital as human capital as their staff member. So shouldn't the businesses be more taking care of their health and wellness then? Because if you are spending more money on your employees, clearly it also means that your employee is your asset. If the employee is sick, then your productivity goes down. So there is a study that has shown from World Green Building Council. I will let Alaa. So is there anything else you want to add on that slide?
All good. So the well-building standard is anchored by the latest scientific research and industry best practices and serves as the foundation upon which the entire well ecosystem is built.
Thank you, Alaa. I also want to add one more thing over there. We both don't work for the Well Building Institute, the National Well Building Institute, even though we may both sound like we are advocates of well, we are both well APs. I want to make a disclaimer that we don't work for the IWBI.
Yes.
Please come in.
Now, the WELL certification requires a comprehensive approach to health and well-being, applying strategies from the WELL building standard across 10 concepts. These on the screen are the 10 concepts for the WELL version 2 concept, that if any of you wants to become a WELL AP, you will be tested in these 10 concepts, like air, water, nourishment, and light. If in this next slide, you will see the version 1, a speed comparison between version 1 and version 2. In terms of concepts, WELL version 2 has added 3 new concepts as compared to the previous version. As you can see, the 3 concepts that are new under WELL v2 are mainly the sound, which was addressed previously under comfort in version 1, as well as the community and air.
sound material center.
Yes.
So are you familiar with the well version 1? Are you, how many of you are familiar with well version 1 or well editing system? Okay, so then we don't have to worry about the previous. So on many of the slides, you will notice that we are comparing to the previous version of well. So if you are not familiar with well, please ignore those slides, because when when Alaa is speaking, I was just thinking through this. If you are not familiar with the well, that doesn't make any sense to understand what has changed from version 1 to version 2. Let's look at it completely from a new,
Exactly.
you can interrupt us at any point of time. If you are not clear on something, ask us, and we'll we'll pause the presentation.
Exactly. And before I go into details, I thought maybe it might be helpful for people who don't know well much. If any of you are lead green associates or lead AP, each concept that you saw previously on the slide consists of features. And these features with distinct health intents, they are either preconditions or optimizations. Preconditions is the same as the lead prerequisites. It's like mandatory. But optimizations are actually are flexible. They're like lead credits, and they are the ones that worth points. Optimizations are optional pathways for projects to meet the certification requirements, and they are the ones who give you whether it's well gold or well platinum. Would you like to add anything, Jeslin?
So have you seen lead buildings around here, like lead platinum, lead gold? So it's a certificate system which actually looks at the, what you call, the sustainability of a building or a greenness of a building, right? So platinum would mean that this building has gone above and beyond in terms of certain points. So in LEED, the categories are there like site, for example, energy, water, materials, how well the architects have thought through about selecting materials. What about indoor air quality, light, things like that. So well is almost similar like that, except well looks at the wellness of occupants. The other one is more about environmental sustainability. This one is more about not just environment, looks at social equity, social sustainability, and the wellness of the occupants as such. So, for example, as Alaa was mentioning, just like LEED, all the features within well, there are two, you can put them in two buckets. One bucket is precondition, which means it's a prerequisite. No matter if you know which project you are working on, if you want well certification, you have to meet those. Those are like minimum checkpoints, preconditions. Other ones are optimization, which are optional. If you do it, you get more points. So here's an example. So for example, if you go to the next slide, please. Smoke-free environment is a precondition. So in under LEED, this is also a prerequisite. If you want to build a green building, LEED or well, then you cannot allow smoking inside the building, or it has to be at least 25 feet away from the major air intakes. You could, but certain places like casinos or hotels, you may have to include smoking. Then you have to have a designated smoking space away from the building. So this is a precondition, which means if you plan to have a restaurant or a hotel, you cannot allow smoking inside. And for this, what well does is they do some scientific studies on showing what does smoking mean to people around smokers, like second-hand smoke, third-hand smoke, things like that. So what I like about well in general is the research they show us. They show us, research from different universities, different bodies. Why are we doing these things? What are experts saying these things? And another thing I like about this is also resilient. It changes every single year. Because we know that COVID is a perfect example. When first COVID happened on day 1, we thought this is not going to be transmitting through air. Day 3, things change. Day 5, things change because we are constantly being resilient. We want to make sure that today we have this information. That is the best information we have. Tomorrow things could change. Same thing here also. So this is not the final word. This is the research. This is the current research. What is showing us. Tomorrow things may change. Let's keep adapting to the surroundings.
All right. What if well equates to human health and well-being? So what is well certification? Let's look at well certification through the eyes of a project. I would encourage you to think of a building project. This could be your office building or any other building that you are working on.
This could be, for example, right now consider your home or your school or anything that you want to consider. And let's see if it makes sense to apply well to that building.
So well certification is a roadmap for organizations or project teams looking to incorporate the best of well building standard into their projects.
So for instance, if you look at, this could be one project. So Thomas will working on one building or multiple projects, or this could be your own office building that where you're working right now, or a school building. So you are taking your building and then you're using the guidelines mentioned in the standard. So this is the Dell version 2 standard, which has more than 110 features under each of those concepts we talked about earlier, air, water, and all those things. And then finally, when you add all those things together and implement them, once you implement them, after that you document them. You document say, okay, we have documented these things. After you document them, can you go next slide, please, Anna?
Yeah.
Sorry, the slides keep moving.
There, yes.
So once you document them, then you need third-party documentation review. It's almost like, if I am going to the doctor tells me, okay, you have to do 10 things. So then next time I go there, the doctor will ask me, did you do those exercises? Did you do those things? Yes, I did that. So that is basically, he's trusting me. That's my documentation. I'm showing him, here is my signature from my officer or my boss, whatever. And then last step is performance verification. Doctor is testing whether my performance has changed or not. So that is the last step. This is something which is different because you could do so many things, but what if in the end, if you don't get the intended performance? So this is third-party verification by GBCI who come to site and look at.
Sorry, when you say performance verification, that means they come into like measurements?
Yes, so performance verification would mean verification of air quality, for example. So if air is a category, so you are making sure that the particulate matter in your office is below a certain number, the carbon dioxide, so there's so many parameters they use. So if you are pursuing those, then they come and verify yes. So they also have third-party verification by other engineers, third-party commissioning agents. Just like for lead, they have it too. That's air. Same thing with water. So water is another one. Sometimes you will see people drinking bottled water or soda, Coca-Cola, things like that. The study has shown in the US that sometimes people don't trust the quality of the water coming from the dispenser, and that's the only reason they don't want to drink it, and they can say go for this. So the solution to that would be, if you have a dispenser in your office space, then showing to the employees that this was inspected by a team yesterday or last week, and they see the signature over there. Okay, now I know this was inspected by somebody who came here 2 weeks from now, two weeks ago. This is clean. But if you don't emphasize those things, then our human behavior itself is like, yeah, I don't think it is clean. So all of this, what we're doing is we're trying to make the healthiest option the easiest option. So for instance, when you design spaces, you go to a restaurant, you go in there, you see all the fries here, Coca-Cola, soda over here, and then last over here. Now you will pick up all those things, and then that will be the last thing. But what if you have fruits and this in the beginning? But now those companies, big companies wouldn't want to do that. They advertise in such a way that they get kids, they can have Instagram, Facebook, all those medias to make you believe that if you drink that cereal, you'll be like this, Hollywood star, whatnot. So that is what is misleading. So all those things are also in this guide to talk about how can you promote eating healthy, how can you promote eating smaller portions. I don't know if you have been to countries like the US, where especially states like Texas, everything is big in Texas. If you order a small dish, something, it comes with 10 different things. In the end, what happens is you waste the food. Sometimes you eat more than what you need. But what if we start smaller portions? So all those are design interventions. To think about it, we may not need a bigger plate. A smaller plate means less food. The bigger plate is like, it's just like having a very big house. Big house, now we need furniture, this and this and that. You have a smaller footprint, less things. That's the
The third party reviewer, you guys have actually a database of who to approach, because obviously it comes with a fee as well.
Yeah.
Do you guys provide a database for the reviewers?
So when you say, we are, first of all, we're not actually the Well founders or Well Institute, and we are faculty members for Well. So the IWPI is the organization that has formed this particular standard. The third party, they have given it to GBCI. It's another organization that manages lead buildings, certification. So GBCI, you can contact GBCI, and either they could become the third party or they have a database. So for example, in Dubai, they may have, XYZ, or if you don't see enough, you could also become a third party verification company. You can actually ask GBCI, how can I become a, so if your company is actually an architecture firm, engineering firm who provides these services, like a testing services, right? So you could actually become a qualified person. So in the end, so this is where I have a difference of opinion. I feel like these are all wonderful things, but if the cost is going to add up, when you are pushing people away. So if you want to make this accessible to everyone, then the cost has to come down. So our goal is to just educate people on what this is, to understand this and apply it in your own life the way you see fit. Sometimes the third-party verification also is like a stamp. It's like someone telling you you are good. But if you don't want to that and still do it, you're still making a difference. You could have a building which is LEED platinum, not platinum, but if you go certification in platinum, and if you go with certification, it's platinum. So there's two different things. One is somebody's telling it's a platinum. Other one is like, I know I built this to platinum standards.
Exactly.
So that brings to the next point. So what do you get out of when you implement all these well features? So this is the level of threshold. You can see starts with bronze, 40 points, goes all the way to platinum, 40, 50, 60, and 80 points. So this is when you have to meet all the core things like the preconditions and enough points to get to that level.
Exactly. Now, the top benefits of healthy buildings are that 73% of positive impact on building base rate, 62% positive impact on building value, and 79% positive impact on occupant satisfaction.
So these are different survey results from different organizations. Again, these are numbers that IWE has shared. I'm sure online you will find more information on these things, like where do they get these percentages from? They call it occupant surveys. They go into some buildings and ask occupants, how do you feel right now, in your building with your limited amount of sunlight, view or whatnot, and they give you feedback. And then 6 months later or one year later, they go back again, survey the same people. Has anything changed? Then they may say, now things have changed. So that is the true way of, I feel like even for architects, you design something with an intention and you want to know whether your design is actually serving a purpose. It will make perfect sense to go back and ask the occupants, are you really using that feature? Then that's a feedback that will help the architect also to grow to a better profession. So this, the whole purpose of feedback is where we get the data. So I also use a lot of data to do analysis on key performance indicators. So we have so much data out there, but how do we use the data? We get the data, we analyze it to see what is the story the data tells us. And then what can we learn from the data to become better performers? Otherwise, there is no use for data. It's like garbage in, garbage out. We get reports, we have all these dashboards, not using it, no point. So that brings us to the next point. What is well building rating system for? What kind of spaces can you use it for? So the version 2, you can use it for almost any spaces, hotels, casinos, hospitals.
So it's basically for all types of spaces. Now let's talk about health. Yeah. We covered it because we have so much more to cover.
It also includes schools, school buildings, hospitals, commercial facilities, retail. The next topic we have is well health safety rating. Have you seen these stamps anywhere? Well health safety rating.
This one, the blue one.
The blue one, yeah. So this particular stamp. So this is something which has happened after COVID. So well building system has been there since 2014, but this became more prominent after the pandemic. After the pandemic, they had a bunch of celebrities in the US. They came all together and they had a big show on this. I forgot which singer they got, but essentially what it does is it looks at the operations portion of buildings, and then sees whether it is sanitized, it's healthy. So it looks at operations and air quality in the building. So this tells public that, okay, this building is well certified, not certified, but well health safety rated, which means you can walk in with confidence. So if you remember, there was a time where many of us were in lockdown. We almost lost those 2 years. We asked some people how old they are. They'll say 38 minus 2 or plus 2, whatever they want to do. They'll say those 2 years are absent from their years. So this is the time when they developed this to give confidence back to the public that if you see this sign, which means that they have good operational practices. So they have some studies at why they did it, that they called the IWBI task force. They had scientists and doctors from across the world, and they looked at different things like operational policies, maintenance protocols, emergency plans, and how do you engage stakeholders. And this again applies to many facilities. You can apply this to auditoriums, because that is where you have the maximum number of people gathering, like sports stadiums, and that's exactly the place where you can get all the Someone comes here, puts hand everywhere, then you go, next person goes there. So these places are, and in the US, it's very prominent now. You can see the sign outside of Starbucks sometimes, or of these big chains. So it is different than well rating system. If you go to the next one. Essentially, it looks at, like I mentioned, looks at, how they are looking at whether they're cleaning the surfaces, sanitizing surfaces, things like that. If you're interested to get your rating for your facility, it's a different process. You can do it along with certification, but it's different. So the reason why we wanted to bring this into today's session is to show how is this different than well certification. So well certification is the one where we talked about the 10 concepts, like the air, water, nourishment, community, and everything. So think about this. Can you go next? So one is actually looking at all the 10 concepts. The other one is a subset of it. So it only looks at the operations and management of it, if it makes sense. So the first one, they look at the air, water, nourishment, fitness, movement, thermal comfort, materials, community. So there's so many of those things which I'm going to talk about next. But the other one, the safety rating is only for operations and management. So that could be applied for existing buildings. So if you have a project which is interested, in one, you can actually apply for both. But for today's presentation, we just wanted to show what is well safety rating and why is it different than well certification. Because people may get confused. If you see the sign and say, yeah, now I know this, I just learned about it. But we learned about it, but they're two different things. So one is very easy to get. The other one, good.
Question, like for an architecture project to interior, does this well adapt to both? Or for example, if a company is just using a space in a building, then would well certify the building as well as the interior, or are they different?
That's a good question. So basically, like LEED, you have an option called the core building. So if you, let's say the client, this building, for example, EGP's Emirate Green Building Council actually is a tenant in this building. So they have control over this space, but not the entire building, right? So they could actually get the interior certified. Now, let's say if I am the owner of this building, then I own the core of the building, like the common spaces, the common, but I can give EGP's guidelines saying, guys, there is this good policy called well and LEED. I cannot force them unless when they were signing to the lease, they saw this coming. So that's the basic difference. So you can apply to both spaces and they have different guidelines. So we call them well core, which means you certify the person as well core projects. And there's well interior projects, well new projects, just like LEED.
We're moving on to the
yes. Yeah, so that's basically the difference between. So now let's go back. Let's look at some well concepts. What has changed? So as I mentioned previously, so many slides it calls back to version 1. So I will ignore those. Please ignore them too. So for example, this one, next one, please. This one actually shows the number of features based on the past. Like you can see over here, under V1 there are 100 features. Under V2, which is right now, 108 features. So from an understanding perspective, what you should look at is the current version of well version 2, it has reduced the number of preconditions and expanded optimizations to allow projects to customize their journey, which means it makes it a little bit more easier for projects to get certification. That's one major thing. And they have also combined some features to reduce complexity. So now let's look at each of the concepts. So there were 10 concepts, right? So there is also a quiz in the end. It's like a Kahoot. We have a fun quiz. So I hope you are all paying attention to this. We won't put you on the spot, but basically it's a program. I don't know how many of you have played Kahoot before? Oh wow. Okay, so we have 3 folks in the room. That's good. So we can play Kahoot in the end. You can play from your phone. Nobody would know you're anonymous. You can put your name there as something else, but you can play. So under air, you can see there are 4 preconditions. So what are preconditions? They are mandatory ones, right? They are the ones that you have to comply with. And there are 10 optimizations. And these are the ones. Some are named over here, like air quality is 1. Smoke-free environment I talked about. So what is air quality? Air quality looks at the air quality of the building and surroundings. So if your building is actually in a polluted area, you're already starting with lots of good news. So that's not in your, I know it's not in your control sometimes, But let's say your building is in Shanghai or Delhi or someplace where the particulate matter score is so high, then you are limited to certain well certification. Let's say limited to either silver or gold or something, unless you prove that no, the quality around my building is actually not bad. So that is one other thing, air quality things. And then if you look below over here, so you can see ventilation design. So this one, after COVID, we know how important is air conditioning systems. Like you do UVGI, different systems to make sure that the air that comes in is clean and clear, the filters. That's mostly about the ventilation design. Then there's construction pollution management. During construction, let's say the space. Let's say they have all this carpeting over here, the contractors walking around and they didn't know what they're doing, but then they may have all the dust collected on these things, right? And when the occupants move in, they don't see it, they get the ingest all those things, allergies and other things may work. So that is something you do with the contractors. You work out something like a construction pollution management plan. That's also under LEED. So these are all different features under air. I'm not going to go through each of them, but I want you to understand that this is nothing but standards or strategies. So under air, everything to do with air. So the primary goal of the air feature is to make sure that the occupants have access to clean air. Okay, so now again this slide, you see many of these slides comparing it to the version 1 and version 2. We can ignore them for now. Yeah. So water, the well water concept makes sure that the quality of the water being distributed in the project is clean. As I mentioned previously, there is this psychological thing where if you think the water is not clean, then somebody tells you that refrigerator, don't drink it from it, don't drink from that. Nobody has cleaned in 1 year. Then surely you'll avoid it. So that's the thing over here, like water quality indicators. You look at turbidity, coliform, some of the indicators to check on those things. Basic water management, when you have air conditioning systems or cooling water systems going on, then you look at how can you manage those things without without compromising the quality of the water.
First of all, you need to choose the right quality, but does it also mandate your person go to dispenser?
So for example, so the quick question is, it talks about water quality indicators. Does it mandate where it should have the dispenser?
No, you should not. So what if I just don't have a
Does it actually then is it added to the project? That's a very good question. So what if it is not in your scope? So let's say if it is not in my scope, like in the US, you have to have water dispenser. Like the building design, the code would say you have to have something there. Like it's almost like if you come into a building where there's no bathrooms or no toilets, because so there's nothing. There are some buildings like that, but usually when you are trying to get a permit for a new building, these are the codes, right? So you have to have those things. So but many offices don't have dispensers. So if you don't have dispensers, then this would be a requirement. You must have a dispenser, and the quality should be that the quality should be minimum. They have a limit on the total coliform and the different water quality indicators. So basically, these are things that sometimes when you add chlorine to the water to purify it, there are something that stays still in the water. They call the byproducts of that. So those are things that are also not very good for health. So they try to reduce that. This is again one of those things which require performance verification. So if you say you do this, because sometimes you can get somebody sign in, but they will have to have someone come and test the quality. If the quality doesn't meet, then you have to retest it again. If you meet, so until you meet the standards.
In your experience, how does the water qualify?
I wish I could. No, so I just flew in this morning from New York. I'm not very familiar with the. Anyone else who wants to answer the question? So how is the water? Exactly. So I live in New York City. It's one of the oldest buildings in the world. So same thing. The municipality water would be good, but the pipes that water runs through may have some lead or arsenic or whatnot. So we put filters there. Yeah. Yes. So also underwater, you will see something called you'll see something called moisture management. So how is moisture management linked to water activity? So moisture management is like, if you see moisture on surfaces, like it may actually make a perfect environment for mold to grow. So that is what that particular one that's we talk about. How can you manage mold? I mean, how can you manage moisture when you design the building envelope itself, like insulation and things like that. That's how that particular credit works. Again, can you ignore the slide? Moving on to nourishment. Yeah. So this is one of my favorite concepts. So this is the reason is I feel like if you learn what's in there, even if you're not working on a lead well project, you can still apply some of these in your own personal lives. So here you can see the 2 preconditions and 11 optimizations. So first of all, is fruits and veggies are actually a precondition. It talks about what is the minimum number of fruit and veggie servings that we should have according to some studies. Again, the studies are based on the US, but I'm sure there are similar ones around the world. And what is that we are having? And then the numbers are mind-boggling numbers. Like you say, we should at least have 4 servings, and sometimes we're even actually having 1 serving a day. So that's one. Another one is nutritional transparency. Like sometimes do we know exactly what we eat? We don't know sometimes. We eat something, they say this is whether fried in this or not. So that is what that particular one is about. If your building has a restaurant, then the nutrition should be transparent. Should tell us if whether it actually has carb, what is the calories, tell us the allergy information, whether it actually has, whether it was made in a facility with peanut or soy or milk or what. So because people have all different allergies. It may not be growing. I grew up in India and we never saw many allergies like this, but after going to the US, I see this is something very serious. People are, like for example, gluten, the celiac disease, or very serious about gluten. There is also lactose intolerance. Then there is fish, there is soy, peanut, and they have some serious allergies. So if you know those things ahead of time, for example, if you have a student, if you have a son or daughter who goes to a school and the school actually has a cafeteria, and if they don't know, then they will shy away from it because they don't want to go through the same experience they had last time when they had this allergy reaction. That's about nutritional transparency.
Isn't this very specific to the restaurants or catering kind of service or industry?
You're right. You're right.
In my office, I mean,
you're right. So in your office, absolutely. So in your office, you're right. And in a typical office, these things actually you may not see it, right? But if you are an employer who wants your employees to become more sharp and more healthier, so let's say if I'm running this office, I don't actually have a restaurant. I don't have any what do you call any choice on what Bhakti. Let's say Bhakti is my tenant. I don't have any choice on what Bhakti eats. But if I've noticed the last 2 years that Bhakti has been sick, then let's say if I am paying for those sick days. So there's a study done by GBRI many years ago where they looked at the productivity of employees. So looked at how many sick days are my employees taking, and if I equate that to dollars, because you're getting paid sick days, right? And how can I make it better? So then I will look at Bhakti says she had allergy. Then let's make sure that the air is clean here. Okay, then or maybe there is if I give food options over here, like coupons. If you go to the salad place, there's a coupon there, something like that. That's above and beyond. But there are many facilities in the US. Some employers don't want their employees to leave the premises, so they'll have the cafeterias. The intention there is so that employees don't waste time going out, so they'll have cafeterias. But if you go to any cafeteria, I can almost guarantee 8 out of 10, the moment you walk in, you'll see the fries. All fries, Coca-Cola, and those things are again hugely advertised. If you see any game, any sports you watch, everything is sponsored by Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but they are not so good for you. It's called SSB, secondary sugar-based drinks. They're carbonated, and the study done it also has caffeine. So I don't know if you have read this book called Caffeine. The book by Michael Pollan. He's also done a book called Omnivore's Dilemma. So on this book on caffeine, he talks about how caffeine is a drug. And how, so I'm actually a caffeine druggie, like I can say I need coffee to function, but coffee is also part of sodas. So there was a huge case back in the day where someone sued these companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, why add caffeine? Because caffeine doesn't actually add any taste to this, but still they won it. They're adding it so that you become addicted to it. So caffeine actually has a property to make it addict, and that's one reason why people who have sodas, they need it. They always need it. Sometimes it's a guilty pleasure to go and keep sipping it, So in addition, you also see some other things, like for example, food advertising. Same thing, like when you go walk into a place, you see all these advertisements. So in this case, what if you use advertising to advertise fruits and veggies or healthy eating? Artificial ingredients are the one. Portion sizes, like how big is your plate? If the plate is big, then you feel like putting more stuff in your plate. Nutrition education, mindful eating. This one is something I'm guilty of it too. So mindful eating is when, how many of you like binging Netflix? So we all binge Netflix and we're like, I sit there and then order and take out and like, oh my gosh, this is so good, so good. And we are not mindfully eating. We're basically like, eating to just, after sometimes done, looking at one more bowl of water. But you're mindfully eating, which means you are giving food respect. You're like, okay, now I'm going to eat 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then you're looking at it and you're eating it mindfully. That way, you don't eat a lot, okay? Then you are eating consciously. So usually what happens is when you work in some office spaces, you don't actually have proper breaks. So they try to just go in and then have something fast and then they shut it. That's not healthy. But if you give spaces, let's say in this office and say, that room over here is going to be our break room where you can sit and eat. Then you will say, okay, now I'm going to bring some meat from home, microwave it. If you have options in the kitchen, then you feel like you have some time. Your employer is respecting your space to eat healthy. That makes a huge difference. In fact, many of us eat unhealthy because we don't know what we're doing sometimes. We just or drinking, soda or whatnot. Special diets, food preparation. Some of these things are actually. I don't think I'm when I leave this class, I ask students how many of their companies do these things. In some cases, there are places where employers would allow people to come and grow their own vegetables. And I was surprised. I don't know if one of the class, someone mentioned, yes, their office does it. They basically give 1 square feet for some number for per employees, and you go to office and you have your own farm. You go there, you do your own cooking and everything. Like, wow, that's an advanced, very progressive office spaces. So they feel like they can be much more productive. I feel at least the minimum if companies can give, that will be better. All right, so let's go. It also talks about supporting local farmers market, things like that. So that's where the social equity proportion thing comes. Light doesn't need much, prescription or some enlightenment because we all need light to function. Same time, we also don't need too much light when you want to sleep. So, for an example, would be when if you're on your phone right before you go to sleep, you will be still awake. So they ask some studies show that if you keep your phone away from you at least half an hour before you go to sleep. So same thing with this when you are taking long flights or in the office environment, some lights are too bright. So these are new studies that show why people become irritated. Sometimes you don't know what is going on. We're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm irritated, but you don't know the actual reasons. It could be a light, it could be glare, but if you know what is the scientific study behind it, then we can make the environment more conducive for more activity. So next one. Axis movement. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. This is also a new concept. Previously, it was called fitness. So movement is basically you encourage people to move more. And now you may wonder what has movement to do with design. But if you think about it, if you design in such a way where you have to move, so you walk into a building, you see these glass elevators, beautiful elevators, like you take it. The steps doesn't look very good, who wants to take it? But what if same thing like the other story where you make it more attractive? What if you have stairways where you walk through this, you have some artwork, nice plants, nice views, then you may be encouraged to do these stairways. So that's again one more study that shows, on an average, we need 30 to 40 minutes of medium intensity workout, at least 3 to 4 times a week. Many of us don't do that. We don't get the luxury because sometimes the work takes a lot of time. They're like, I know I'll do it tomorrow, first of the next month or 1st of January. But if we get to do this 3 or 4 times a week, then we can avoid so many of our health ailments.
But this links with the productivity. Because the more movement, then you're losing productivity of employees. and they have to move more than they do the actual job.
That is very good point. But what studies have shown is when you start working out, how many of you work out here in this room? Any sports, any activities? So what makes you keep doing it?
You don't want to die young.
Anything else? So there are studies shown that when you, after a particular, let's say, work for 30 minutes or 10 minutes or something gets created, some new hormones or whatever hormones it is, dopamine effect, you get this and you feel like, wow, you have this wow factor. Same thing happens with exercises, but you have to do this for a few days to get that. Once you do it, then you feel like now it's not always about the physical appearance. After some time, they need it. They want to the same thing with meditation sometimes. So I feel like it's one of those things where you're right. Let's say the employee is like, la 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 la, thinking all the time, right? But this is one of the things about socialist policies. I come from a state in India called Kerala, socialist state, so I know, I'm a fan of socialism. Also, sometimes I see how people could take advantage of. Somebody says, take a sick move, then we're like, okay, I'm going to walk around and. But that's the study shows. If the employee is healthy, then less chances of them becoming sick. So if you are working out, I'm sure, I don't know, if she is feeling much more productive and healthy in terms of mind, and also she may feel like I will not become sick. But if you are, and these are all different studies that we have shown why people do this way, and if you're more active, then activity that means the brain is also super active and alert. Yeah.
Actually fun for an office building, like a standing desk, so that you don't need tables for your earphones and architecture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's covered here. The ergonomics
Yeah, so this is
workstation.
not very clear on this particular slide, but just look at the second one. Ergonomic workforce position design.
And active furnishing.
So this means act like, for example, when you sit and work all the time, it's not healthy for you. They have standing desks. Sometimes they're allowed to move around. They even have gyms in offices to make sure that there's some activity. But in theory, I think, if I could get Abdul to work 8 hours, I'm going to ask him to work for half an hour. Oh my gosh, I'm losing half an hour. So I did this an experiment in GBRI many years ago. We had a yoga and meditation in the morning, and I felt people would be much more happier. So for example, let's say, I don't know about here, when you drive on the road sometimes, there could be road rage. Drive and like, oh my God, I don't like this guy driving like this, So then that automatically you go to the office with that. First half an hour, you'll be like talking to your employee, oh wow, this guy, he was cutting me off, I wanted to go and punch him. But if you take that off with something else, like something positive, then I feel like you can get much better results from that person. Again, these things are all, I feel, there's a saying called everything in moderation, including moderation. So we should not go overboard with it. I feel that's how it is. Sometimes there are people who has to run every day. If you don't run, then they will fall sick, and so there has to be some balance too.
Sure. That's the movements.
Yeah, we can skip that. So this is actually an interesting one where they made, for example, circulation network. That's what I was talking about, stairs, where you can make your stairs more interesting by having art or music. But if the stair is boring, then you don't want to take it. Sometimes it stinks. Sometimes you go to some stairs, but if you make it interesting, then you may take the stair more than the elevators.
Thermal
Thermal comfort is a very relative thing. Like, if I say I feel warm right now, Bhakti could say, no, I feel cold. So that is one thing which is very, I know as an architect, you may have your own formulas to figure out what is the optimal temperature for a space and design the space. So this particular one addresses that. It's a hard one according to me. If you go here, you can see over here, I don't think you can see very well, but there's something called individual thermal comfort, which addresses that if I'm sitting next to Bhakti, as an employee, I understand that Bhakti and Jeslin have two different thermal comfort preferences. So then I allow Bhakti to dress how she likes to dress, and also ask me what options for bringing a personal fan or personal heater. That is one option. Or we can do zoning. So for example, when I say dressing, in the sense, if some offices may have their own dress codes, but if you allow them to bring a jacket or a sweater, things like that. But this is again, I don't think it's a foolproof method, because you cannot say that Even people get divorced on this topic, where some people like it to be a 65-degree Fahrenheit, some people like 60-degree Fahrenheit, some 53-75, and yes. So that's the.
So not in version 1 at all.
Thermal comfort was there in a difference. It was called something else, about comfort, I think. Yeah. Sound, again, this is also something relative, but most of us may say that if it is loud noise, like waking up, especially in New York City, whenever I call Alaa, it's always the police sirens or the ambulance will be always in there. After a while, you get used to it, but it's not very good for your health, because mentally your body is thinking you can only take so much. So in the well-being standards actually shows different decibels, like what is the ideal when you want to go to sleep, or when you're in an office environment. Let's say you are having conference over here, and the next door people having fun over there at a party. That may not be very productive. Then indirectly you're getting distracted. If you're in a classroom environment, let's say your son or daughter goes to a school where constantly they're not able to focus because they are being either bested by sound pollution outside or from air conditioning, or inside next door there is something else. It could be a lack of planning, and also how you map the sounds. Like how can you actually put a space together in such a way that the quiet zones are next to each other. The quiet zone is not next to a loud zone. Just like sometimes when you travel in a train, you'll have quiet cars, right? So similarly, in spaces, you can do similar things like that. So those are just, again, considerations that makes your buildings more. Again, I would not say that if you look at any office buildings in the UAE or developing world, these are things that may not come to people naturally. They'll think that, oh, if there's some sound, deal with it. That is the answer sometimes people give. But if they know that it is going to irritate the person, it's going to bring the productivity down, then they may consider something. Materials, on the lead side, you're looking at materials to make sure that these are environmentally conscious materials, like things that are rapidly renewable, like bamboo or cork, or things that are sourced locally. But from a well point of view, materials are which has less chemical composition, like less, like how many of you are familiar with the Living Building Challenge? It's one of the other rating systems like LEED, which is considered to be the highest or most stringent. So they're very, they have certification called petals, and they have a list of red list items like these things should not be even used in some construction materials. Depending on where you are in the world, some countries allow you to use anything you want. Like, for example, US is not one of them. European Union actually has a big list of items they would ban you from using. Let's say if European Union has 100 things they ban you from using, the US may have 50 of them already in the system. So it's a matter of preference and studies. Like some people say, this one you use is carcinogenic, don't use it. So if they have this slightest study that shows it has an impact, then European will say don't use it. US may say no, let's continue using it until we have a better study or something like that. So this particular one is about picking materials that has got less off-gassing. For example, when you get into a new car, you see the VOCs, volatile organic compound. It smells good, but may not be good for your health. Same thing with different furnitures, furnishings, showroom, like when you're working in companies, you can look into those things. Does your material have low VOC content? So that's about this particular category. This is also another important one, mind. People may not talk about this at work. Will say, what has mind to do with at work? But just like the physical movement, they talk about whether you are calm, whether you are able to be calm. How can you become calm? Like if you know that your family is being taken care of, sometimes you become calm. Like if you are at home at work, because your boss has to be there, at the same time you're thinking behind of your mind, my mom is not feeling well, my daughter is not feeling well, So these are things that it understands in mind and community. Also talks about meditation, like mindfulness and things like that. So here you can see nature and place, giving access to. So there are studies called there's a field called biophilia, like our innate tendency to be close to nature. So how many of you like to be close to nature? Like almost everyone. So and there's a reason, because we are You're genetically programmed to be close to nature because you're part of nature. So if we are constantly not seeing it, that could actually make us less productive and also less happy. But if you see something, so there have been studies where they should say even build some smell of nature, like some leaves or something that makes you feel like, I can think about my childhood or the day I should run like this or something like that. So so if you have an office space with views of nature, sometimes it is not always possible, then at least you have some plants in the space, then you can see some plants or something which reminds you to be close to nature. Another one is about stress management. If every culture is different, in some cultures, sometimes they discourage people to discuss stress. Like if you ask, let's say, be a man, don't cry, But in this particular case, you're acknowledging that we all have stress, we all undergo stress. Let's talk about it. Let's acknowledge it. Let's process it. So they're bringing professionals to work and talk about stress management. How can you manage stress? Sometimes people may think that, I'm getting the best out of my employees, but what if I am also stressing them? What if I'm giving unhealthy deadlines and things like that? So that is all of this particular category. I think we're coming close. The next one is community, I think. So another one, if you can do one more. So other one also it talks about if you have issues on substance use, like drugs use, things like that. What if there's a place in the office where they call the professional to help? Like if you have those issues, like these are like top privacy issues because people are open up, but what if there's a program where you're encouraging people to give up certain substances? Yes. So this is the social component of it, where you're supporting the community. So this one looks at how you can include health and wellness promotion plan, new parent support, new mother support, family support. These are where you're giving more extended leave, paternal leave. Some of these policies are very socialistic. Again, people may take advantage of it, but in the end, what the intention is to have a more civic engagement and include the community. So for example, here, new mother support, bathroom accommodation. Some of these may seem like very standard. Many countries may already have this, but I also hear certain countries there are not enough bathrooms for all the genders or female gender or things like that, or not enough accommodations for someone who is handicapped or children or women. So this is basically making sure that bathroom is equipped with things that women may need and things like that. So this is actually not a concept, but this one touches on everything else. So innovation is where if you have innovative ideas that could touch on any of the concepts. So this is something I like about LEAD also. They say that these are some of the recommendations, but don't stop there. If you think that we can come up with new ideas, and if it actually goes with the mission of our system, then you get points for that. So also, if you have a well AP on a project, you get a point. And if your building is also LEED building, then you get 5 points. So this is where well complements LEED, not just LEED, any other like SDRAMA or any other green building rating system. If your building is already certified under that, you get 5 extra points for that. So that concludes the third part of the agenda, which took much more longer than I thought it would take. The last component is if you want to become a well AP, how many of you want to become a well AP? So let's do that, and then we'll do it real quick then. Okay, so this is, I already went through this, LEED also complements. So in short, well version 2 is equitable, it's global, it's evidence-based, technically robust, customer-focused, meaning focusing on the occupants of wellness, and last but not least, resilient, which means it's constantly changing, it's open to change, like that. So the last component that we have is what are the 10 things you should know if you are preparing for the well AP exam. So who is a well AP? So a well AP is a professional who is knowledgeable about the well rating system. So now I think you have already know the foundation of what is well. So this is someone who actually knows inside out of well rating system, who can help projects navigate through certification process. That's a well AP. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is what is the exam eligibility to become a well AP? So there is no eligibility to, then there is no age bar. If you're 18 years of old and above, you can take the well AP exam. You don't have to be, an architect or engineer or anything like that. 18 years and above can take the exam. How much does the WebAP exam cost? So this is not in our control. It's something that I don't be a chance letting you know. It's if you're a student, it's $99. If you're a professional, it's $299. But if you have a larger group of folks in your office interested, then they have these volumes. Like if you have more than 500 in your office interested in becoming a WebAP, then they have this. This is again a slide that I'm sharing from IWBI. This may change, but if you are interested, you should always check on their website. What is the WebAP exam format? So if you are familiar with any other computer-based exams, so this is just like that, just like LEAD, you go on to a center, a prometric center, like GRE or CAT, you go to a prometric center and you are given an option to sit there for 2-3 hours and then take the exam. You can also take the exam from home. So this is something that was developed during pandemic. It's called ProProctor, where you can take the exam from home. However, from what I hear from students who are taking it, it's been a mess because there's connection issues, you don't have the software. And so there are some issues people had when they took this exam. They thought they will almost flunk it. The reason being, when you take this exam from home, there is somebody actually proctoring you. They should always have access to your camera. So they should be always seeing, if you go to the test centers, what they do is they are not allowing you to take your phone, your calculator, you're doing it from home. They want to see everything around you. They should be able to see that no one else comes in the room, you're not talking to the phone, If some system glitch happens, then it may not work in favor of you. So you have to do some, if you're interested in doing that, then you should, I think, test it a few times before. How long is the exam? It's 2.5 hours long, 150 questions. Not all the questions are scored. Some questions are not scored, but you would not know which questions are those. There are just some questions out there which could be lengthy, confusing questions. You may wonder who wrote this, and those may be those questions, but you'll never know. What are some of the WebAP exam reference documents, or what is the exam based on? So exam is based on these 3 documents. One is the Well version 2 guide. When I say the guide, you should look at the Q4 2020 agenda, because that was the version they based the exam on. Right now, if you're working on a project, you go there, you may find something new. But for the exam, the quarter 4 2020 agenda is the one. That's number 1. Number 2 is the certification guidebook. Same thing, Q3, Q4 2020 agenda. And last one is a Well portfolio guidebook. All 3 books are available online for free. You can download them. That's what is based. The exam is based on. Now, what are Well knowledge domains? This is where the questions come from. So knowledge domains are nothing but those 10 concepts we showed you previously. So those are knowledge domains, along with a new domain called Well certification. So let's see for here, you can see air, water, nourishment. You can see all of those. And the last one is you didn't see was the certification. This is the process. So these are the concepts. And this is the process of getting certified. Now, if you think about it, if you want to become a professional, you want to know what are each of those concepts, right? And how does it make a difference? And last, you also want to know how does all these things come together on a project. So these numbers are actually the number of questions you can expect from each of those knowledge domains. So, for example, from air, you can expect 11 questions. From certification, you can expect 12 questions. Now, what are some of the WebAP exam question types? There are 3 types of questions. They test for your recall, application, and analysis. Recall meaning you are recalling an information present in the document. It could be something about how much some information. Second one is application, a problem to solve. And the third one is you are breaking down the problem further to analyze it to solve it.
And you have 112 questions,
right?
Including application and analysis.
Yes, these are all. So yeah, so yeah. And it's also a project scenario. So what does project scenario mean? So this is where you are given a project story. Like if I'm telling you, there's a project in Dubai, an office space where 15 people are working together, and they're planning to do these things. And that is a story. And based on the story, you'll be asked a few questions. It's almost like a reading comprehension. If you remember those things back in the day, you have those reading comprehension, and then based on that, we have 3 or 4 questions. So they will give the scenario on the exam. You will see the scenario, and then on the screen you will be able to see the questions simultaneously. So you go back to the scenario, read it again, And the more you read about the scenario, then you'll know, okay, this information is there or not there. So what they're trying to do is almost like to simulate the project. If you're working on a project, then you know what you know. But for eligibility, you're not required to work on a project. So there's one of those things where you don't have to work on a project to become eligible, but you'll be tested on that. So what is embedded content? So this is something new for LAP version 2. It's almost like I would probably say, like an open book exam, but not completely open book. You have a few pages of the exam guide which you can refer to. So if you have seen the guide, it was just pretty big, like 500 pages of font and something like that. And there's so much information out there, like the number of values, like this unit, that unit, so they have given some of those pages to you on the exam that you can refer to. That way you don't have to memorize them. So that saves a lot of your energy. If you know what is out there, you can save some of those. For example, you don't have to memorize all the concepts, all the numbers. It's all given there. It's closed system. Yeah, so these are the things that you will get to see. These are some threshold tables, some scoring levels. So these are all you know ahead of time which documents you have access to. So at least then you know we don't have to study or memorize them. Last question after actually listening to all those things, the thing that you want to ask yourself is the LAP connection right for you? So I would say if you consider yourself someone who's a pioneer in your industry, who wants to lead by example, who sees bringing value to your organization, then this could be right for you. If you see using this in your personal lives as a project, it makes sense to you. So you can see that this is again from them. You can see it spans across all job function, not just engineers and architects. You can see brokers, designers, retail management, assistant. So everyone, every single profession we can see over here, you may reflect on some of them. So I feel the value is if you know this at least, even if you don't take the exam, at least have a look at what it offers, then you can apply it to other projects. Even if you don't want to become an LAP, still you can read about it. So at least then you know, I know about well, someone talks about at least I know what is. And if you're interested from a business standpoint, why should you do it? This is one reason they give it. The health industry is now becoming a $4.2 trillion industry, which means there's so many options out there. Especially after the pandemic, people use health as a buzzword these days. Just like sustainability used to be a buzzword a few years ago, now health is a new word. You put in health somewhere, then people may buy into these things. But I'm not saying choose as a gimmick, but just saying from industry point of view, this is the industry value of the industry. So now how can we help? So what we do, as I mentioned previously in the beginning, we are an education provider. We are the US Green Building Council's approved education partner for 12 years, AI education provider. We also provide education provider GBRI. So our exam prep includes all of this, which is a free component, and we include LAP live sessions. So live sessions are taught by, it used to be me, but now we have more instructors. We have also Alaa, who will be teaching the Zoom. We have more than 400 practice questions, 3 exams, and then we also have a study group on WhatsApp. So it's basically we use the social component. So we can all come in one group. We discuss questions. We talk about hardships, things like that. And these are again some resources on web for free. Yeah, next is. So what is our exam prep methodology? So what we do is we use real world example. We use a project, so that way we can cover the project scenario example. We try to teach everything through a project based. So I think it's always easier to teach someone through examples instead of just saying you do this. So or you can ask them question, why should we do this? Let's see on a project. So we use our own live project to teach the exam prep. In fact, you will see the next, and then we also talk about the core guidance, which is the core projects thing. And we have practice questions and mock exams. So mock exam is actually simulated, which means you can take the exam at once to see how the actual exam works. And so far we have, I'll probably say, we have a guarantee that you'll pass the exam if you follow our guidelines, or else you'll give the money back. And so far, no one actually has taken the offer. So this is basically our scenario where we use projects and then we bring everything together into a project. So this is we use our building project over here. It's called GBRI Community Center, and it is designed by one of our students. We use this to teach, the different concepts. We say, now that we learn about the concept, let's look at some of the strategies. And then we encourage students to come up with their own strategies. That way they can relate it to the project. Some reviews from our previous example, folks, and also you can see this is a 6-week program we have. It's taught live now. So we have 2 instructors. I'll show them their names shortly. Right now, it's mostly taught in the US time. But if there's enough interest, I was talking to Juma about this, if enough interest in Dubai, then we can do in-person session here, or online session. We have an online session already up. If you're interested to sign up, we can send you the link in a couple of days. Whatever times you prefer, like you prefer 7 p.m. Dubai time, 8 p.m. The one in the US is actually 12 p.m. Eastern time in the New York time. So that would be here, I think, months later, 9, something like that. That may work because now group we have students from across the world. But what we are thinking is, if there's enough demand in Dubai itself, where we could bring in Alaa, like for instance, if you have, like Alaa mentioned that everyone talks English here, but what if somebody needs also guidance in Arabic? Then she could be that bridge that bridges the gap between knowledge domains. So we have a 6-week program. So you can see from here, so this is almost like week 1 that we went through. And then we also have an optional study buddy, like if you want to assign a person, you can study with. Sometimes you need that push from someone to push you. Did you read that document or not? So that's our 6-week program. And now you can see, at the end of our session, you'll also become a wellness ambassador. It's a socially shareable badge. It's an online badge you can share on LinkedIn and things like that. So these are the other 2 instructors we have. They were both my students, and they're both LLBs now. One is a faculty. Carolyn is an architect, Doug is an engineer, and of course now we have Alaa also to help us. These are some of our students who have taken the exam, passed it, and they have also contributed to the exam. Some reviews from this is a scholarship holder from India who got the scholarship. He took it, and she can see the score over here. She got 192. So most students scored between 185 plus, almost all the students. These are some of the testimonials from the US. You can see Alaa, which is also there. Perfect. That's it. So let's actually get to the next. If you're interested, next step is if you go to our website, gbri.org/well. Give me a day. I will ask Felicia to send you all an email with some information on the options if you're interested, and then we can go from there. And if you're already a WellAP, then we also have courses. We have a course called Wellopedia, which is basically looking at every single feature and looking at what has changed from the past. This is some of the other courses that we have. Now let's do a quick Kahoot. Shall we? We have time. Perfect. So this is another program that we have. It's called a Climate Change Ambassador Program. As you know, climate change is now no longer a thing where we can take it for granted. So we have a program where we educate folks on every single element in our life, like starting from our eating habits to our traveling habits, our footprint. Alaa is an ambassador. She has been ambassador for a few months. I'm not there yet. There are 4 levels. You start with Trailblazer, then you go to Warrior, then you go to Champion, and then you go to Ambassador. I'm a Champion, she's an Ambassador. So once you become Ambassador, then essentially you can apply them in your daily lives and inspire others. You're trying to work with organizations, schools, colleges, where people could actually take collective action. All right, so let's do Kahoot real quick. So if you can grab your phone, and then you can go to kahoot.it. So people on the Zoom, you can also do the same. So we have 50 participants on the Zoom. Wow, that's nice. So we have 50 in Zoom, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in the room. That's amazing. We have 60 participants. So folks on the Zoom, if you have any questions, I see 4 questions on there already. Let's see. What is the minimum fee for certification? So those things, I wish I knew the answer right away. There is a fee structure which I can share, Shahid. It's on the WELL certification page. So it depends on the area of the project, and there's also something called P2P certification. Yeah, so the meeting is actually being recorded. You will be sent a recording of this meeting. As this is the first time we're doing a hybrid model, so as some of you know, we are right now, as you hear us, we are both Alaa and me, we are both in the Emirates Building Council office space. I don't know if you can see me, maybe if you're seeing me, maybe you're seeing my half of my body. Yes. Sorry about the visuals here. All right, so let's do yes. Let's do a quick Kahoot. So if you can on your phone, if you can on your computer, if you can go to kahoot.it. Let's go to the library. Right. So once you go to kahoot.it, you will see we'll ask for a small little number. So you're going to enter the number you see on the screen now. So the pin for the pin is 2041266. So once you go to kahoot.it, to ask for a pin, and then you can include the pin. Pin is 2041266. Let's Perfect. I can see Abdul here, Oxwell, Nandana, Juma. There's an option to share this sound. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's an option to share the system sound on Zoom. Yeah, I think so. I think I tried to. I think no, there's an option where I can do. No, there's an option to share the volume of this. That they can hear the volume, you know. Can you increase it? Yeah. That is it, yeah. So, yes. All right. So we have Bhakti, we have Sana, we have Thomas, Saikat, Oxwell, Juma. So I think on the Nandana. So we have 50 folks on the Zoom. So I hope you can all join. All right. So if you have issues, please let us know. If you go to kahoot.it, you can start. Okay. So let's just start now. All right. Ready? All right. So first question. This is a test question. There's no point for this one. I don't know why it's called. 3 words that come to your mind when you see or hear the word health. So there is no right or wrong answer for this one. This is just a test. The first one is just a test. So we have 3 answers only. 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, let's see. Fitness, mind, physical, social, well-being, mental, physical. Wow, good. So that is a good one for us to check whether you can all good with the system, the program. And also we got now we know what you're all thinking about when you think about health. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just mind, body, spiritual, well-being. Perfect. So let's get to the real quiz now. Next question is, how big is the global health and wellness market? If you remember, I actually gave the number towards the end.
You was it 1.5? Was it 3.2 or 4.2? Well, the right answer is 4.2. We have 7 people who got it right and 3 you didn't get right. So let's see where we are with the. So far we have Saikat leading at 900. Oh, actually, N. Somebody decided to just go with N. I don't know if it's someone in this room, but they are leading with 970 points. Second is Saikat at 909 points. Third is Nandana with 875 points. Thomas and Arifa are very close though. All right. Well, version 2 comprises of how many concepts? The answer is right on the screen. Well, I'm so proud of you all. We all got it right. So looks like Saikat took over N, almost 2,000 points there. And we have one person who was well. Somebody from this room? Hard to tell. Any poker faces? Which of the following are new features under the well community concept? So I don't think I went through this, so I may have to help you with this one. The answer is all of the above. So this was one of the slides I went through fast, but basically under the well community concept, these are the new concepts. Like new mother support is one of them. Community access is another one where you're engaging the community centers. For example, let's say if Emirates has this conference room and they would want to allow community to engage in this, they could give them access to this. That way you are allowing the community to use your space and engage with them. All right, so we have all right answers there. Wow, so we have Arifa who just took over, almost 2,700 points there. So the answer for the Kahoot to work, you have to also be very fast with your fingers. All right, so we have 3 more questions. Well complements lead, BRIAM, and other green building systems. True or false? Well, the answer is true. We got one person who got it wrong. That's okay. All right. Still Saikat is leading. Like I see the all 4 top players are Abdul Latif, you're close there. Okay, next one is also true and false. Innovation is not a well concept, but it touches on all other concepts. Looks like you gave up on. Did you give up? Right answer is true. Innovation is not a well concept, but it touches on all other concepts and rewards projects for innovative ideas. Let's see. So we have still the top 5 players. The race is very close now, especially the first 2. All right, last question. Which of the following is true about well version 2? Is it global? Is it resilient? Is it evidence-based? It's all of the above. The right answer is all of the above. It is global, it is resilient, also evidence-based. Let's see who is number 1. Oh, that's very fast. Arifa is number 1 with 5,500 points. Second is Saikat with 5,500 points, very close. And then all of them are very close. Congratulations, Arifa, Saikat, and Nandana. And let's see who the other two are. I'm sure this moment
Are they all online?
they're not online. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because there isn't laptops, so they're faster than us.
Well, Abdul Latif in the room claims that he should be the number one because he was not. Thank you, folks. Thank you for participating. Well done, everyone. Congratulations to Saikat, Arif, and Nandana. Sometimes it also shows the number 4, number 5. I don't know if I can see it now. And it does also, usually it makes it more dramatic. In the end, it makes them bring some music and it will make some suspense. For some reason, probably I clicked it so fast. Anyway, congrats. So let's go back to the presentation and I'll take questions now. So first, I know I didn't actually realize there were 50 people online. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and type in the chat window. And if you're in the room, you can directly ask the question. I'll come to you with the microphone. Yeah. Oops. So I think you maybe talk. We're trying to find the controls here. I'm looking for it. Yeah, chat. Okay, let's see chat. Perfect. All right. So you can type in your question if you have in the chat, or you could also come off the microphone and ask the question directly too. If you don't have any questions, then I'll take a couple of minutes and then I'll conclude the meeting. But before that, any questions from in the room? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So the question is, so we talked about how much it will cost to become a LAP, the exam fees, but we didn't talk about how much our exam prep fees was. So our exam prep fees right now, if you want to do it online live with an instructor, it is $349, but there is some coupon that Felicia is going to send you, like I think it's a $50 coupon or something like that. So it'll bring the price down to $299. We also have scholarships. If you have students, we do scholarships for students. If you have groups like larger groups, like for example, if you have quicker groups, then we'll do like we work with teachers directly. So we have some programs where we work with the faculty of a school, where faculty could become the conduit between us and the students, and the students could actually take as a mass program in the class. That's an option. And if you don't want to do the live exam prep, there is just online. You can study on your own. I believe it is $149. So basically, the live component is where you are joining like this, and you have Doug or Carolina. Sometimes we join the session live, where you can see other students from other parts of the world. You can talk, So some people actually prefer that. Some people who are self-motivated, they're like, I'll on my own. So we also have that. So if you sign up for the on-demand version, then you get access to everything day one. And then you can follow our roadmap. So we have a roadmap that will give you week 1, week 2, week 3. So if you follow that, then you don't need the live component. And yet you'll have access to the WhatsApp group too. So you can still ask questions if you want to join, things like that. The live component, the major difference is the group. Like you have a group of people, you can see them. Some people find it motivating, some people are quick. So it's a personal preference that and if you have a larger group, then we can do a custom live session for your group. So let's say you were saying this time wouldn't work for us, but can you do this? That's also an option.
Can this be done physically? It was like 6 weeks.
Right.
So can you do like a physical class?
We thought about it. So Alaa and I thought about it. What if in Emirates, like in the UAE, if there is a demand, then this could be the place where we can watch the session together, or Alaa can then answer questions. That is an option we can think about.
But that again would be, I would probably think it will cost more, right? Because you have to then, yeah. But that's definitely an option because that's, we call it in person then. So one is live online, one is live in person, then one is on demand. So one question, is it required to become a lead in associate or no? So lead has nothing to do with the LLB exam. So if you are a lead in associate, that's great, Fabiola, but then you're not required to be any credential holder to take the LLB exam. It's independent. As long as you're 18 years and older, you can take the LLB exam. If you're a student, I would encourage them to take now because the fees is less. Once you become a LAP, then you're required to take continuing education units every 2 years. That's another requirement for LAPs and all the professionals in the US. So we also provide those courses. So some of our courses would actually qualify for those to meet all the requirements for those.
Thanks, Jeslin and Alaa, for the presentation. I'm sure I will take the exam. And I want to know any case studies access do we have which are in the UAE when certified?
We definitely. Thank you, lovely. We definitely have cases in the US. So actually, I was thinking of it for today's course, but then we didn't have time, so that's good, right on time. For UAE, I have to check because New York definitely has many of them. You can find projects that are lead and certified. You can see how how they have. Yeah, so in the UAE, also, maybe there's some international projects also. Then you can find. So then there is, if you want to interest, it's called wellcertifiedprojects.com is the URL. We can send you the URL where you can search for projects. Some projects, however, choose to be private, but some would have it all. So the one that we had planned to discuss today was called Kunda, CUNDA, the office space. They have certified. Yeah, that's one. Sorry. Oh, Brookfield. Okay. 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 So the question was, are there certified spaces in UAE? The answer is yes, definitely. There are a few, even platinum certified well projects. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Yeah. It's growing rapidly now. What we hear from IWPI is that it's growing rapidly a lot in China also. So there's a lot of demand that they started seeing. I think it could be a few reasons. One could be the government, one could be just being conscious, or it could be fear of missing out. Like sometimes you have this FOMO that, you have to have everything. I don't know if you have heard of JOMO. JOMO is like the opposite of FOMO, like joy of missing out. So let's say if all of you are going to a trip and I'm like feeling fear of missing out, or I could be like joy of missing out. It's okay, I'm glad I didn't go. Introvert question. All right. So any more questions? So the question is will it be a license perpetual, or do you have to do it every? So it's once you get the license, it is forever. However, you have to maintain it by keeping continuous education. A perfect example is me. I have all these credentials. I lost a couple of them, and I the organization that I have has all these courses. I forgot to report them. So even if you report them, then you lose them. So I actually lost a couple of them with USGBC. Yeah, that's sad, but it's also lessons learned. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank EGBC Investing Building Council for this opportunity. Juma for introduction, and that's how we got started. The director Abdullah for allowing us to be here. I know this is Saturday, it's a holiday for most of you. Thank you for coming here and being part of the game and also participating along with everyone else. I also want to thank Alaa, who drove from Abu Dhabi with her husband, and I also want to thank him a lot. He was the one running around in the room with the camera shots, photographer, and it seems he has been hitting the word well for the last 2 to 3 years. Now he is saying unofficially he's a LAP. also want to thank each of you individually for coming here and being part of this program. I hope our paths will cross again and we can do something together.
Thank you.